And welcome everyone to today's Wellness Webinar, Episode 2, Maintaining Your Sanity Working from Home, presented by the Cooperative Credit Union Association and the Alera Group. I'm Walt Laskos. Before we get started, some housekeeping items that are good to know for everyone. There are several ways in which you can raise a question or share a comment during today's webinar. If you move your cursor to the lower portion of the video screen, you'll find a Q&A icon. Please click on it, type in your comment or question, and hit submit. You can also do the same using the chat room feature. Finally, you'll also find a hand icon at the bottom of the screen. Click on the hand to indicate you wish to share your question or comment for all to hear. And then once you're recognized, we'll unmute your audio line and call on you to actually speak your question for everyone to hear. Today's presentation will also be recorded. We'll post the recording to CCOA's website and let you know how to access it in an upcoming edition of our daily CU scan. So please watch the daily scan over the next day or so. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Todd McDonald, Managing Partner, the Alera Group for the Northeast region. Todd?
Walter, thank you so very much. Delighted to be here on behalf of all of us at Alera. Thank you, and we appreciate this partnership, and it's one that is tremendously valuable for us. Personally, I've been in the business for 27 years and joined Alera in 2018. And the reason I did that was because of the fierce belief in collaboration, teamwork, and all of that. And it was a tremendously good day last year when Mike McKenna and the entire Comprehensive Benefit Administrators team joined Alera and became a partner of mine. And I know Mike has been a tremendous resource and asset to this organization, and in the spirit of collaboration, in the spirit of Alera, Mike immediately reached out to partners like myself and Tom Hart and others in the New England area and said that he has enjoyed a tremendous relationship with this organization, but we want to extend the power of Alera. We want to extend the collaboration of Alera. So that is our intent here today, in a very small part, to introduce part 2 of a webinar series, and to also just ensure that everyone here today understands who we are, that together we are stronger, and ultimately Alera is here to support you with the likes of Mike and his team, but certainly myself and all of my partners here in the Northeast. So again, delighted to be here, thrilled to support you, and we will continue beyond today to find opportunity to deliver value. So with that in mind, it is my unique opportunity and my distinct pleasure to introduce Kristen Hamilton, who has been a partner of Alera over the years. Kristen is a licensed dietitian, a registered dietitian, and will share insights about how to successfully manage hunger and prevent overeating throughout the day. Certainly I can relate to that on a personal note. This pandemic has challenged us all and put us in a state that many of us never anticipated. And as we identify the new norm for each of us, as we kind of recalibrate our work environment, and for many of us it is in fact working from home and may remain working from home, we want to make sure that we have information, we have guidance, suggestions and tips. And today we believe Kristen is just a tremendous asset, and we welcome her. Just by background, Kristen received her bachelor's degree in dietetics from James Madison University and completed her master's degree in health education from Virginia Polytechnical Institute and State University, Virginia Tech. She's registered and board certified as a specialist in sports dietetics by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, as well as licensed as a dietitian in both Pennsylvania as well as Delaware. She holds a certificate in adult weight management as well. In addition to counseling individuals one-on-one, Kristen works part-time at Villanova University in the Office of Health Promotion and as a sports dietitian at the University of Delaware in the athletics department. During her free time, and I'm trying to figure out where that may be, Kristen enjoys running, experimenting with new recipes, and reading. So we are simply delighted to have Kristen join us today. And in the partnership of Alera and the Credit Union, I welcome to you, Kristen Hamilton.
Thank you so much, Todd. I really appreciate it. And that was a phenomenal introduction. So great. And just to follow up on that, I actually recently relocated. So I am now in Charlottesville, Virginia, of all places. But to add on to the many things that I do, I am a mother of two, and I am pursuing a doctorate in clinical nutrition. So all the way to the dissertation phase. So here we are. But yes, I want to thank everyone so much for taking time out of their busy schedules, their busy lives, because I know we are all super busy. And it's tough to try to do everything that we are trying to do day in and day out. So what we're going to talk about, as soon as I find my cursor here, is we're going to talk about maintaining your weight while working from home. And this is something that is very unique to our situation right now, where many of us are working from home, and it is really challenging, including where my cursor might be located right now. Oh my. All right. So what we're going to do, there we go. Just had the boxes in the way. So let's move them out of the way. All right. So what we're going to talk about today is certainly how do we figure out how to eat, how to fuel our bodies, and how to maintain weight while working from home. There we go. All right. We were playing a fun little game there. All right, so to get started, what we're going to be talking about and looking at right now is addressing our home and office surroundings. And when we say home and looking at our home and our office, let's differentiate where our kitchen is versus where our office is, finding a workspace that works for us. We're also going to be talking about keeping our hunger in check. And this is really interesting because what we know through research, what we know about personal behavior is hunger is very different than appetite. And while working from home, and maybe some of us can attest to this, we are finding that we are eating a lot more because we have this appetite and maybe not a hunger. So I'll give you some of my best tips, tricks, suggestions here as well. Then we'll talk about meal planning strategies as well as some cooking ideas and smart snacks. This is a great time, if you have your phone handy, to keep it handy so that you can just snap photos of the slides. Certainly this presentation is being recorded, but it might just be easier to have that information readily in hand instead of trying to jot it down as fast as I might be talking. And then finally, we're going to talk about fitness at home. So to add on to that lengthy list of everything I do, I'm also a certified personal trainer. And it's really tough to talk about fitness and food separately when we know that the two of them are really married together. So while we go through this presentation, I do encourage all of you to share any comments, any questions. I will address all of them throughout the presentation. I will also leave time at the end of the presentation. We are certainly learning from one another right now too. So if there are tips and tricks that you all are utilizing and want to share with the group, I do welcome those suggestions and tips and tricks as well, because this is a new situation, and living and trying to manage through a pandemic is challenging, it is stressful, and certainly I think we all have some value here. So when we look at our dedicated workspace, what we want to consider here is, again, differentiating our space in our home. Having a dedicated workspace is going to really help you ensure that you are working, that you are as productive as possible. It's also going to give you that feeling of, yes, this is where I work versus where you eat. We want to try to stay away from our kitchen. Why do I say stay away from our kitchen? Well, we know if you see it, you are likely going to eat it. It is true for all of us. And we do this time in and time out. Somehow we end up in the kitchen and we're, looking around and we're trying to figure out, why did I end up here? How did this happen? And all of a sudden we see something and we eat it. Or since we are social distancing with many loved ones, family members, friends, whomever, children, they're eating. And all of a sudden we are thinking, maybe I should eat. So try to create that workspace away from the kitchen. The other thing I'm going to share here is dressing for success. Why do I say this? Well, many of us have been getting really comfortable at home, and not to say that you can't get too comfortable, but creating that office environment and then dressing for the work environment and to be productive. And also keep in mind that if you have tighter fitting clothes, you are going to likely eat less or be more aware of what you're putting into your body. Other suggestions here, consider a standing desk. With the standing desk, I have seen many great ideas on social media. I've seen some folks, if they have a treadmill, put a piece of plywood up on their treadmill to create a standing desk. I've had other folks tell me they are using an ironing board right now. So another suggestion there to kind of get creative if you want to have a standing desk. For others, it is just getting up and moving a little bit more. I do know that I met with one individual and she's using a therapy ball right now to, again, increase some core strength as well as a little bit of motion throughout the day. So if you find that helpful and you can still be productive, great. Try those things out. Another thing I'm going to mention here is when we talk about posture and being comfortable, this is really important, as many folks have been guilty of maybe working in bed, working off the couch, working in places that aren't really conducive and can cause some neck, some joint, back pain, and certainly long-term be hazardous. So again, when thinking about your workspace, try to create that small space. Or if you have a larger space, or if you already had a home office, wonderful. I will share a little story. I have a dear friend out in Chicago, social distancing, 2-bedroom lofted apartment. He has 3 little girls and never thought that he would have to work from home. He has actually used his closet now to conduct work. And so it does work and it is possible, even if it is not necessarily ideal. So moving from that idea of your workspace into when you eat, and again, keeping those two as far apart as possible, what you want to do here is create a daily routine. So many of you likely have a routine where you know when your meetings are going to be, you know who you're going to be meeting with, discussing deadlines, those kinds of things. They're in your calendar, they're in your schedule. You likely already know what time you wake up, what time you go to bed. So it's filling in the spaces throughout with those to-dos, including physical activity, as well as when you're going to eat. If you have a daily routine, if you've actually solidified in your calendar those times and those spots where you have breaks to have a meal, you're going to likely be more apt to actually eat that meal and follow through. The goal here is really trying to eat every, I say 3 to 5 hours. I know the slide says every 3 to 4, but the goal really being somewhere right in the middle there where you know you're going to get hungry. If you know you're going to get hungry, you need to anticipate it. And we all know we will get hungry. So the idea with that is anticipate you're going to get hungry, know that you're going to get hungry, and then know what the plan is when you do get hungry. Because if you don't have a plan, then we act impulsively. And with impulsive behavior leads to oftentimes overconsumption and then feelings of regret. Remember, food is fuel. We need to fuel our bodies. There's nothing wrong with eating. We all need to do it. It's just, how does that fuel make us feel? How do we perform off that fuel? And how do we feel about fueling our bodies? As I already mentioned here, the out of sight, out of mind. We want to keep food out of sight, so therefore it is out of mind, so that we only address food, we only eat, fuel our bodies when we are truly hungry, not with appetite. So on this next slide, you're going to see some ideas and tips and tricks for mindful eating. Mindful eating can be a phenomenal strategy for those of us who feel like maybe sometimes it might be a little tough to figure out when you're hungry, when it's just appetite. You find that you go hours upon hours and then all of a sudden you're eating and it's ravenous and you feel like you overeat and then feel guilty. So with mindful eating, the idea is that you pay attention. You pay attention to the why and what you're doing. So with this, it's okay. Am I hungry? If I'm not hungry, then why am I in the kitchen? What am I doing there? Get out as fast as possible. But figure out what's going on. Are you hungry? If you're not hungry, again, get out. Are you hungry, or is it something else? Oftentimes we find boredom, procrastination. We have deadlines and we just don't want to do this. Then we also want to say, well, why am I in the kitchen? Again, if you end up there and you're like, oh man, why am I there? Or why am I looking in the pantry or the fridge? And I know many of us are probably guilty of opening up that fridge door and just looking in there. If you know that you're guilty of that, it's okay. Make sure that you put fruits and vegetables at eye level so that you see those first. And you say, okay, well, do I want those carrots? Do I want the strawberries? Or do I not want anything at all? And shut the door. Having portion control is really, really helpful too, where if things are already pre-planned, pre-portioned out, you're going to be more likely to actually just eat that amount rather than eating out of the bag or portioning it out while you might be really, really, really hungry. With mindful eating, the thought here is to actually enjoy the food too. So we have that idea of, okay, that sensory experience. So we want to actually taste it, chew it, smell it, experience the food. Many of us, maybe if we're familiar with this idea, you can try it with a raisin or anything with texture. Dark chocolate's phenomenal too, where you just put one small piece in and actually give yourself 5 minutes to eat that one little piece of chocolate, that one raisin, that one nut, and see what that experience is like. Now, I know some of us are saying, oh my gosh, all right, I live in a loft. I have my living room, my sofa's right next to the kitchen. There's no separation and I can't lock the fridge. It's great. It's a great comment. So this is where I'd say having that plan in place as to what are you going to eat and trying to really figure out how do you want to behave for the day, and having a behavior plan set up in advance really kind of helps you figure out, well, what am I going to eat? What's available? And then what I would also say is keep the foods that you want to eat. And we'll talk a little bit about this a few slides up. Keep the foods you want to eat in your house. And if there are foods that you don't want to eat or you find that you are eating impulsively, get them out. There are plenty of food pantries out there right now that could absolutely use the excess food that you might have. So share the wealth and just remove it from your environment, particularly because we are homebound and there's no other place for us to go. This is a phenomenal tool. So this can be also really, really helpful when we're trying to figure out, well, how do I decide when I'm hungry and when it is just appetite? The hunger scale, and for those of you who have your phone, snap a photo of this. It's a great tool. For those of you who really like it, you're going to be able to remember it easily and you won't actually have to carry this around with you. But what is so helpful is to figure out where you are on the spectrum. The goal being 5. We want to stay right smack in the middle throughout the day. We're going to be satisfied. We're not hungry. We're not full. We are fueled. We are able to do what we need to do to be productive without thinking about food. And that's the key here, is that's where we need to live. This is where we want to live. We shouldn't have to think about food all the time. At some point, we do get hungry. And that's where we start heading down into the 4 to the 3, into that 2 and 1 range. And this is kind of that 2 and 1 range is the danger zone there, where we start getting hungry. And I relate it to being so hungry. This is beyond being hangry and eating a Snickers bar. This is, I'm so hungry, I'm about to eat my own arm, or yikes, watch out, social distancing folks, whoever is next to you, okay? So we know eating your own arm, cannibalism, not good. Then what happens is we get so hungry, we get impulsive, we're able to justify behavior. I didn't eat, I'm so hungry, therefore it's okay to fill in the blank. You know, it's been cloudy out, the Northeast, it hasn't been great weather, rain, so I think therefore I need a brownie, but a brownie just won't do, so I probably need ice cream on top of it, and that still isn't enough. So I probably should add, some hot fudge sauce, and you know what, let's just add a cupcake to go with it. I know I am exaggerating here, but it's okay to make these things and be able to justify and make it make sense in our heads. And when you say it out loud, like I just did, you have to say, wow, that kind of sounds a little silly. What am I talking about there? So again, think about when you're getting hungry and decide, it is time for me to take a break and really sit down and eat. Now, on the flip side, we're going to start eating, right? And this is where it gets interesting, right? Because if we're acting impulsively, or we've just been able to justify behavior and the action, we're going to say, okay, I'm going to eat. And we eat rapidly. And the idea with mindful eating is that we slow down. Oftentimes people will say, you need to sit at a table, you need to enjoy the experience, remove distractions. For those of us who live in the real world, I get it, and I'm a realist, where you have to come to a happy medium. If we can remove some distractions, great. My biggest suggestion here is halfway through your meal, take a pause. Take a pause and ask yourself, would one more bite make us feel more fueled? Would one more bite make me feel more satisfied or more energized? And if you cannot definitively say, yes, one more bite is going to give me a lot more energy and I'm going to be able to take on the day even more so than before, then you're done. Because food is fuel. And so we're going to try to eat to the point where we are comfortable. We are pleasantly full, but we're not getting to that point of uncomfortable, to that point of being really lethargic, tired. And I think many of us know what I'm talking about, maybe Thanksgiving, to that point where you get into that 9 or 10 range where you are uncomfortable. It is Thanksgiving. We know what that feels like, except you ate twice the normal number of portions that you normally eat at Thanksgiving, and you're rolling on the floor. And if humans could explode, you would. So we know 1, 10, either side of the spectrum, we want to stay away from, and we want to stay in that nice little range, really from that 3 to that 7, trying to stay away from that feeling stuffed, knowing that food all of a sudden becomes toxic and it is no longer fuel. So that's the hunger scale, and just keeping in mind halfway through that meal, take the pause and ask yourself with one more bite. There are other strategies here. With mindful eating, the biggest thing here is to try to remove as much distraction, and again, to differentiate between your workspace and your eating space. And if you can do that, great. So when you're eating, eat. I know someone mentioned drinking more water to help the urge to eat. Yes, that can be really helpful too. So like me, and I saw Todd had his beverage with him too, we want to stay hydrated. Yes, we want to stay hydrated throughout the day. So I strongly encourage you to drink water, bring water to your workstation, bring calorie-free beverages to your workstation to help you focus in and do what you need to do. It's also another great excuse to get up. For many of us, we probably aren't getting up nearly enough, or maybe not even close to what we were previously doing. So this is a great way to say, yeah, it's time for me to get up. It's time for me to go to the bathroom. I need to move a little bit more. The other things with food and trying to differentiate, we want to, again, try to slow it down and remove distractions. I did have someone who had mentioned reading a book. I'd say anything that you find is pleasant, that is calming, great. I would say with negative distractions, social media, the news right now, I probably would just put that away while you're eating, because again, there can be things that cause triggers, and those triggers can then act as a reason or trigger us to act maybe irrationally and behave differently, maybe overconsume or even underconsume, and that can be detrimental to our health. So we have some meal strategies. So when we're trying to figure out, like, what do I eat? How do I put it all together? The best strategy I have here is, again, setting up those deliberate times when you want to eat, making sure that you have time to eat and having it pre-planned, pre-portioned. That will help you ensure that you're actually eating meals. You're going to feel satisfied, energized off of it. What we find is that many Americans, we graze, particularly when we're homebound, right? And we go and we start picking, we pick, and all of a sudden we say, well, it didn't count, it doesn't add up. And what we realize is we actually ate more by grazing or picking at food than we would if we actually sat down and had a real meal. The other thing you can likely see with grazing, and if anyone is a picker and is guilty of it, is you end up eating foods that are calorically dense. So foods that have more calories in them. So therefore, you're actually eating a lot more than, say, having that meal time and having something that might be higher in, say, fruits and vegetables. We know Americans do not consume enough fruits and vegetables. So when trying to figure out what to eat, my suggestion is always to start there. So I do have an image, and we'll bounce back and forth, but this is your choosemyplate.gov. And I'd say that this image is pretty good. I do have one that I like a little bit more, and that would be Harvard School of Public Health. They have a healthy eating plate. I'm going to type this into the chat box. So the healthy eating plate, it's from Harvard School of Public Health. So you can go ahead and Google that. And it's very similar. However, they highlight the fruits and vegetables on the left-hand side. But when you get around to the right-hand side, they actually specify proteins. We want to look for lean proteins, proteins that have less saturated fat, that being the bad fat. When we talk about grains, we want to make sure that we have grains, but they're actually whole grains. So grains that aren't processed, that aren't highly manipulated. And this is where, when we start looking at strategies and social media where folks say, oh, carbohydrates, they're bad, they're toxic, they're going to make us quote unquote fat. It's not carbohydrates, it's our processed foods. The processed foods, we have to remember, they have been manipulated, they have been created in a lab. These scientists they're brilliant. They have ensured that foods are easy to chew, they're highly palatable, they are highly addictive. They taste really good. And the goal there is for us to overconsume. So it's not about willpower. It is, they have been designed for us to fail and to overconsume. And it's money, and it truly works. So for anyone who does struggle with, I always tend to overconsume, it's remove some of those foods from your home, remove them from your environment so that you can be more successful. When looking at this plate, and again, just scrolling around, you're going to see dairy is on this model. If you go to the healthy eating plate from Harvard School of Public Health, you'll see that it's water. So really focusing on calorie-free beverages. If you want to consume dairy, that's great. However, I will attest, and especially with older adults, we don't consume milk, and that's okay. We don't have to consume milk with every single meal that we have, but it's, well, what are we consuming? And that's really what we need to focus on, is calorie-free beverages. When you scroll back, and you're going to see that this model does not have any oils on it, any fats, and that's a little alarming to me. But when we look at our fats, we want to make sure that they are healthy fats. So healthy fats being our unsaturated fats. For those of us who might not be familiar with unsaturated fats, it's going to be our fats that come from plants. So we're talking about olive oil. We're going to be talking about avocados, our nuts, our seeds. Those are all going to be great sources of healthy fats. Fish also falls into the healthy fat category. So that can be another beneficial healthy fat. And what you see here is, so we talked about making sure that we have fruits, vegetables, healthy fats, lean proteins, combining them all together. So when I'm planning any meal or any snack, I start over on the left-hand side of the plate and I work my way around. So I'm going to look for what is my fruit and or vegetable. And that's first, no matter what I am making. Why? Because again, out of sight, out of mind. And we know our fruits and vegetables are high in fiber. They're going to help us stay full. They're going to help us stay satisfied. They're also lower in calories. They're also jam-packed with nutrients. And right now, I know everyone is looking for ways to boost their immune system. That's a great way to boost your immune system, is to eat more fruits and vegetables. So more fruits and vegetables, start there first, work your way around the plate. And as I already mentioned, staying hydrated throughout the day can be really, really helpful. The plate model is beneficial too for anyone who likes just a visual representation. If you have kiddos at home, ChooseMyPlate.gov has wonderful tools and tips for children too. So I really would highly recommend that if you're pulling your hair out now and saying, what do I do with these kiddos? I know, I hear you. So get creative, go onto that site, go on to Harvard School of Public Health, and they have a tremendous amount of tools, tips, tricks as well. So with meal planning, how do we actually execute this? How does it make sense to eat and figure it out? We want to try to figure out the best time to plan. In my house, I'm the cook, I do the grocery shopping, I do all the preparation. And if you are like me, it gets tedious after a while. It's, what are we having for dinner, or what's on the menu? And so I've been throwing it back out at my family, and I really would encourage this. If it kind of ownership lies on you solely, it's, well, no, what are we going to have, and let's decide as a family. And planning helps you therefore decide what you're going to pick up when you're grocery shopping, knowing that many of us don't want to go to the grocery store every week, maybe not even every other week. And if you're trying to lengthen the time in between trips, we really need to have a plan in place. I've actually gone to pulling out old cookbooks. They have lots of wonderful images, and it gets the family kind of thinking, and we brainstorm and we talk about, okay, why don't we make, who knows, stir fry? Okay, maybe a favorite pasta dish, maybe something that we haven't had in a while. The other thing that it helps you do is it helps you decide, well, if I have time to cook, great. And if I don't have time to cook, should I make extra portions, batch cook? And we'll talk a little bit about that and pulling out some of our tips and tricks again. And remember that we want to plan for all of our meals and our snacks. Anticipate you will get hungry. It is okay. We all will get hungry. If we don't anticipate, this is where we end up failing because we didn't have a plan in place. When going to the grocery store right now, it is definitely having a plan in place. I would suggest right now having a plan A, have a plan B, maybe even have a plan C. You're going to see, we've had some issues with supply chain. Sometimes those foods aren't there. They're not available. So have that backup plan so that you know, all right, this is what I'm going to get. This is what I'm going to pick up. And if that item, say the chicken isn't there, well, what else can I get instead? You want to also take inventory of all the foods you've been eating. And I recommend this because you're going to start seeing, especially being homebound, and if you have other family members in the home, certain foods are going faster than others. So it kind of gives you a better idea of, well, how much peanut butter do we go through every week? And how much do I need to purchase when I go to the store? It's also going to help reduce the idea of hoarding. And I know many of us, when this first, came about in the pandemic, some of us got a little maybe overzealous and we decided to buy a lot or maybe way too much of certain food items. And now we're stuck with those food items and maybe we feel like we have to eat it. This is where I'd say that food pantry, donate to a food bank, give the food away, particularly if you find that you're eating it, you don't want to eat those things. But also, if you have a list, you're less likely to buy some of those junk foods or those impulsive buys. And I know with living during a pandemic, it's so easy, that the voice in that head, right? To justify, oh, it's okay. I need to. It might not ever be there again. It will. It'll come back. Don't worry. So again, remember, have that plan in place, know what you're buying because you already know what you're making. The other idea here, particularly if you find that you just don't have enough time, is the idea of batch cooking or even cooking it once and eating it twice. And in my household, leftovers are really not popular. It's unfortunate, but it just doesn't work for us. So if you love leftovers, great, more power to you. However, if you're like my family and you can't stand it, what I do is I'll cook it once. I'll actually freeze half of it if it's a freezer-friendly meal, so that I can pull it out at a later time when I know that either I'm really busy or things are chaotic or I just want a break. And that's okay too. The other thing with batch cooking that can be really, really helpful is maybe making a larger amount of, say, a grain. I love picking on brown rice because I find that you can do a lot of things with brown rice. So say I made brown rice and I use my rice cooker, or you can use an Instapot or whatever tool you have in your kitchen. I pull that out so that I'm not over the stove the entire time. It's going to cook by itself. I don't have to do anything, but I'm making a large portion so that I can then portion it out into 3 different meals. So maybe say day 1, I'm going to do a stir fry. So I'll throw in some of my frozen edamame, my eggs, maybe some of my frozen vegetables, really, really easy, mix it up, voila, there you have it. That's day 1. Day 2, maybe it's for, say, Taco Tuesday, I don't know, and we're doing burrito bowls. So we take that brown rice base, we mix in, say, black beans. And if you have some chicken, great. If not, you could do it vegetarian. Maybe throw in some cheese, some salsa, some leafy greens, tomatoes, onions, whatever you have there. And then the next day, maybe you just want to go basic, right? And you could do that brown rice with, say, that fish or that chicken or that baked tofu. And you could then pair it with maybe broccoli. It could be fresh. It could be steamed out of the freezer. So whatever you have there, but that really gives you a lot of opportunities, a lot of different types of meal items too, so that you don't feel like you're eating the same thing time and time again. Those hands-off cooking techniques, this is where I really encourage folks to get back into the kitchen. Look at how many pieces of equipment you probably have. And I know many of us are like, I probably have one too many, but that's okay. Pull out the slow cooker, pull out the Instapot, the rice cooker, pull out all the gadgets, the gizmos, and the things that are supposed to help you make your life easier. Get back into a routine so that you feel like you have more time, because that's what they're created for, is to help you be able to prepare meals faster. Sheet pan meals are phenomenal. There's lots of different recipes out there right now. One of my favorite websites, and I'll type this in the chat box here, is eatingwell.com. And they have a lot of great resources. They have recipes there. They also have articles written by registered dietitians, so it's information you can trust. And most recently, they've actually been coming out with like 3-ingredient recipes, 5-ingredient recipes, which I'm thrilled about, because I've found over the years it's just becoming kind of ridiculous how many ingredients you need to make a meal. But the nice thing here is the sheet pan meal, where you could do chicken. I did chicken, Brussels sprouts, and sweet potatoes all in one pan, stick it in the oven, and it is done. And it's so easy, and cleanup's easy. Or the one-pot meals. Maybe you have a whole wheat pasta. I did this with pesto. I had shrimp or arugula, tomatoes, and you just throw it all together in one pot. And again, easy cleanup. We want to remember, again, as I mentioned previously, to prep breakfast, lunch, and snacks so that you would feel like you know how you're going to behave. You have those foods and they're already ready, and you're not spending excess time in the kitchen. My biggest suggestion here, prep the night before. Oftentimes we find that the kitchen gets really messy at night, dinner time. And I'm sure your house is probably like my house, right? And it's a big mess. So what better time than to make a bigger mess and get everything ready for the next day? I love focusing on my fruits and vegetables right away in the morning. So I actually make a smoothie. And if you have a Ninja or any kind of blender, Vitamix, what have you, I pack everything into that smoothie base. So I'll put my spinach, I'll put my fruit, I'll put my protein, whether it's yogurt or say a milk or a dairy, and then I will actually just stick it in the refrigerator and pull it out in the morning, blend it all up then. But it's already ready, and I feel like, wow, I can pat myself on the back. I've already had one serving of fruits and vegetables, and it really was easy to do. All right. So these are some great suggestions. If you want to just take, again, a photo, if you have your phone nearby, of some mega head meals. Some of my favorites on here, I mentioned the smoothie. I find for breakfast, that's the easiest thing here. But again, to focus on those fruits and vegetables. So if you're going to make the overnight oats, well, what kind of fruit could you put in there that you could add to that overnight oat? For other things here, maybe say the eggs in a muffin tin. What kind of vegetable? We add some bell peppers, maybe some spinach, maybe some onion, mushrooms to that. Again, just to give yourself an extra serving. With lunch and snacks, you have a lot of variety here where definitely using leftovers. So that night before, if you want to take some of those leftovers, maybe that brown rice, if we want to mix it in with some leafy greens, if you have maybe tahini or hummus to add to that, then you start having a little bit of variety. It's not the same thing, but it's using the same ingredients over again. And with those snacks, as I mentioned before, particularly if you're guilty of opening up that refrigerator door, have cut up fruits and veggies readily available, because when you see it, that's what you're going to go and get. I love having dips available too. So if you like Greek yogurt, you can make your own Greek yogurt dip. Hummus is another great dip, so that you are more likely to indulge in those vegetables. The fruit, pairing it with a protein can be really beneficial too. So look for other protein sources. The fruit and yogurt goes nicely together. Cheese can be another easy protein source. You could even pair that with vegetable or fruit or both. So lots of options here. Trail mixes can be super easy at home, and I find that trail mixes are fun where you can take any type of nut or seed. I like adding in plain old Cheerios. Why? Because it adds some bulk without excess calories. If you want to put in a dried fruit, great. And I think having some dried fruits that have no sugar added can be really beneficial, particularly during COVID-19. However, keep in mind that they're dehydrated fruits. So the same number of raisins is the same number of grapes you normally would consume. So it would be a small portion. Or take that nut Cheerio mix and pair that with maybe cut up apples. And you still have a really nice mix there, a great blend. With smart snacking, I think we've talked a lot about this already, which is kind of that, again, that idea of planning dedicated times for snacks. I was working with a client the other day, and he was telling me how tough it has been being homebound, and how he finds in the evenings he's out of control, and those are his words, and he finds that he's overeating, and he's like, well, what can I do to fix this? How do I get out of this rut? And I told him, I said, it sounds like you're getting hungry, and it's okay to get hungry as long as you have a plan in place. And if we don't have a plan in place, then it's going to be impulsive. So if you know that you get hungry in the evening, and you know that you tend to overconsume in the evening, one, I'd say, well, are you eating earlier in the day? And if you're not eating earlier in the day, try to eat earlier in the day. But two, figure out what you're going to eat later in the day, knowing that the odds are, if you're going to eat, let's have a plan. Popcorn, as you can see on the slide, is an awesome suggestion. It is high in fiber. It is low in calories. I like making it on my stovetop. Again, a little bit of work. Oftentimes it's, if you have to plan it, you have to prepare it, you go back and you say, well, am I hungry, or is this appetite? Is this something else? Boredom, procrastination. Looking at some of those combos, again, going back to that fruit or vegetable, and then pairing it with that protein and healthy fat. And as you can see here, a lot of the things we already talked about. So definitely finding your fruits, your vegetables, and going through kind of a list. Brainstorm what you like, so then you can add them to your list when you go grocery shopping. All right, so now we're going to move into that idea of physical fitness. So we talked about food, and as I mentioned before, it's tough to talk about food without talking about physical activity. And physical activity, it doesn't mean that you have to be a marathon runner. It means that we just need to move, and we need to move more, knowing that Americans don't move. We don't move enough. And certainly being homebound now, we know that we're certainly not moving enough. So my biggest suggestions here is, again, just like eating, come up with a plan where you can have times when you can get up. You can purposely stand, move, and just be more active. If you have any type of smartwatch, smart technology, whether it is an Apple Watch, whether it is, say, a Fitbit, wear your smart technology, because that's going to get you up and moving more too. The idea of watching how many steps you take. If you knew how many steps you were taking prior to the pandemic, and then you can look at how many steps you're taking now, then it'll give you an idea of, well, maybe I need to move a little bit more, or it just gives us a goal. And goals are really, really important because it makes us want to do something. And without that little push, that little pressure, sometimes we just don't, and that's okay. But try to get up, try to move. Again, mentioning the water's great because you will have to go to the bathroom. For me, if I take out the trash, I get the mail at a separate time, and it just means that I have to walk twice. And it's just an extra excuse to get up and move more. Doing the laundry, taking calls. If you can take calls and be on webinars and have them, plugged in, or maybe have, wireless earbuds in, so that you can move and you can still listen and you can still see, but you're still engaging in some sort of physical activity. Definitely, if you have pets are a great reason to get up, do more. I've also encouraged folks to just start cleaning. If you haven't started cleaning yet, I'll tell you, my baseboards look phenomenal right now. And, it's a great reason just to move and do a little bit more, maybe more than what you were previously doing before. So again, that idea of multitasking and moving. What I will also share with you, and this is interesting, and anyone who's been watching me on camera this whole entire time, you probably can say, wow, she's a fidgeter. And yes, I am a fidgeter. I don't stop moving all day long. And if anyone else on the call is a fidgeter, you can say, oh yeah, I've been told over and over again, stop moving, stop fidgeting, stop constantly being engaged. What I will tell you is it finally pays off for those fidgeters, because research is showing the more we move, even those fidgeters, the more calories we burn. And this isn't rocket science, folks, but we know that if we can move more, even fidget more, you are going to burn more energy, and it's going to help with weight control. So getting up and being, again, engaged with moving throughout. If you can try to stand every 30 minutes, that can be helpful. I'd say at least every hour. I mentioned the headsets. If you can take phone calls while you're on the move, great. Another fun one here is to keep the trash can away from your desk so that you actually have to get up and move. But don't go to the kitchen, right? Because that defeats the whole purpose of everything we just talked about. All right. Other things, staying fit at home. So for anyone who loved going to the gym, and many gyms are still closed right now, or you might just not feel safe to go to the gym, I would say it has been very, very challenging and really interesting. Some folks have found this to be a refreshing opportunity to get back into a routine, while others have kind of said, I don't want to, I don't like it, or running isn't my thing, so what do I do? If running isn't your thing, it's not the end of the world. However, I'd say try to get out a little bit, and you don't have to run, you can walk if you're physically able. And if you're looking and you're saying, well, I've never really been physically active, or I've never been a runner, but maybe I'd like to get into it. There are great apps out there. So some of my favorite apps would be the the Couch to 5K. And it goes couch to 10K, couch to half marathon, couch to marathon. So for those of you who, again, just want to start getting up and moving, you don't have a home gym, you can't get out to your gym, but you want to find a way to move more, I find that can be really, really helpful. Having pets, dogs, is another great reason to get out to do more. If you've got kiddos, getting outside, particularly now that the weather is starting to break. I find that there are other apps out there that are equally appealing and can get you moving as well. If you wanted to map my fitness, for those of you who are interested in how far you're going, particularly if you like to bike, that can be really, really helpful, finding safe routes. As well as, I find one of my favorites is Nike Training Club. And if anyone's familiar with Nike Training Club, it is a free app. It is basically your virtual coach, and they have a ton of different programs on there. Most of them are high intensity interval training, otherwise known as HIIT, which can be really, really beneficial for maintaining and losing weight. And what it does is it puts your heart rate up really, really fast, gets you moving. So things like burpees, jumping jacks, tough stuff, right? But they have a variety of programs and a variety of skill set, fitness levels. So if you are a beginner, It's okay. Intermediate, advanced, they also have different programs with different tools. So if you don't have weights at home, that's okay. You can do it weight free. If you do, if you have a kettlebell, great. You can find those activities as well. And then they have different durations. So I find that that can be really helpful. So that if you only have 10 minutes, and I've heard it time and time again, I only have 10 minutes, you can still do something. Making weights at home, another opportunity here for anyone who has those empty milk jugs. Fill them up. Maybe we have rice, maybe we have dried beans. You can fill those up. I've actually used paint cans in the past. That works as well. Textbooks do the same trick too. So again, get creative, get moving. Other things, Pinterest, for any of my Pinterest lovers, I will tell you right now that there are tons of 30-day challenges, and you can do these with friends and family while social distancing. I have my sister-in-law who is a consultant, and she was in and out of hotels all the time, constantly moving, never home. And it was, well, let's do a 30-day plank challenge and see how it ends up. And again, it's another way to engage while still staying fit and active. So with some of those no equipment workouts, I know we've mentioned some of the HIIT-based stuff or the high intensity interval training. That can be really, really helpful. So if you're Google searching, you're like, well, what do I want to do? What am I looking for? That's one option there. Using your own body weight can be really, really helpful. Oftentimes we think that we need heavy weights to get there, and our own body weight is easily and oftentimes more than enough. And if you want to intertwine that with, say, yoga, with Pilates, you can do that. Tabata is a form of HIIT-based training where it actually times out. So you have usually about 8 different activities, and it's times of 20 seconds on with 10 seconds off, which can be really, really helpful, particularly when we are homebound and no one else is kind of coaching us and forcing us to do it. And I already mentioned running. So with that, my suggestion here is to try to stay active, also knowing that when we are active, we tend to make smarter food decisions. So the two tend to go hand in hand and are really, really important when you think about how you want to eat, how you want to fuel yourself, and just what we want to do as we are trying to stay safe, stay sane, and definitely stay healthy during this crazy new time. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and hand the speaker back to Todd.
Well, Kristen, that was simply phenomenal. So thank you on behalf of Valera and the Credit Union Association. I've got a lot of work to do personally, but honestly, a true inspiration. The tips and the hints and kind of the tricks of the trade were just invaluable, and I'm hopeful that all of the participants felt the same way in so many ways, and I'm sure your clients say this to you. In so many ways, it's simple. It truly is when you see it, but it's about executing and the preparation piece and all of that. So personally, that was wonderful. We thank you certainly for joining us, and I believe it's all been recorded, so hopefully others can share with their team members, presuming they found the same value that I did. So again, thank you so very much to everyone joining. Again, thank you for taking time out of your day. I'm trusting you found value in the message from Kristen and the tips and the hints and all of that. On behalf of Valera, we're just simply delighted to be a partner, to be a long-term partner, to lead this health and wellness series. And certainly there will be a lot more coming from us in the future, and we very much look forward to that. So Walter, I'll turn it back to you for any final comments and closing out.
All righty, Todd, thank you so much. And again, Kristen, thank you. Just want to check with everyone to see if there's anyone have any questions. One that, in the meantime, before I ask my question, let me just say that if anyone does have a question, there's a Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen. Just click on that, and we'll be more than happy to read off your question from you. Unless you want to actually tell us and voice what your question is, there's also a way that you can do that by just simply raising your hand, and we'll unmute your mic and allow you to voice your question. But Kristen, you know, when you think about it today, we're at a time of the pandemic. There's a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety people have. So obviously the first thing that comes to mind, and maybe I bring this up because I lived out in LA a long time and worked with the LA Fire Department in relative to earthquakes and bringing relief. And there's always the talk of comfort food. In times of stress, comfort food, right? So you automatically think mac and cheese. Is there or are there healthy comfort foods, right? So it may not be that mac and cheese and the starch, because also remember the starch goes to sugar. What might you recommend, or offer some comments to us on that?
So it's funny, and this has actually been a topic outside of this group, but with Wellness Concepts, who I represent, and it's folks want to have comfort foods because I do find comfort in it, and there's something kind of rewarding and homey and securing with eating those comfort foods. And yes, those comfort foods tend to be higher in starches and carbohydrates. So the biggest thing here is any recipe that you have, if you can add in a whole grain. So say it is the macaroni and cheese. So I love macaroni and cheese is a perfect example here. The macaroni and cheese, if you can make it yourself with, say, whole wheat pasta, that would be step one. The second thing, if you can always blend in a vegetable or fruit, depending on what it is, that can be really, really helpful. So for many of you, if you're not familiar, you can actually put in butternut squash and blend butternut squash with the cheese. And you're really going to get a nice macaroni and cheese dish out of it, and you will not taste it. And it's going to cut back on some of that excess fat, some of those excess calories. So coming up with just simple recipe swaps can be really, really helpful. I find my favorite food, pizza. Pizza is so comforting. And instead of getting pizza and having it brought in, we're making our own. And certainly you can make your own pizza dough. We're doing nice thin crust. If you have a pizza stone, you can pull it out onto the grill as whether it gets nicer, or just do it in your oven. And I'm putting toppings on there. So focusing again on lots of vegetables. So I love a thin crust, lots of garlic, fresh tomatoes, and I'm putting arugula on top with a little bit of mozzarella cheese. And it's something that can be really a smart decision and doesn't have to necessarily break the bank of calories. And hopefully, again, just having a plan in place. My other suggestion for those of you who say, okay, and I get it. If that comfort food, you don't want to manipulate it, you don't want to change it, you love the way it is, it's portion control. And my best suggestion here is start that meal with the vegetable, or make half your plate of vegetables so you just have less space on your plate. We eat with our eyes, right? So if we have extra space on our plate, or we start with that macaroni and cheese or whatever it may be, and we add it to our plate first, yikes, there's no room for the vegetables. And I know it, I'm human too. I do the same. So it's just coming up with strategies so that you are more successful moving forward.
You know, I just want to say that from all the attendees, everybody that's on this webinar, who is not hungry right now after listening to that nice pizza? And I'm thinking of those fresh vegetables with hummus. I'm thinking of all the wonderful things you're saying, and I'm going like, oh my God, stop already. I'm drooling at the mouth. I mean, so let's hear it from those in our chat room about the folks that are hungry. In addition, Kristen, what about, you know, again, we were talking earlier about, or I was talking about starches and sugar. Also during this time, we saw, right, people are hitting the liquor stores like crazy. Sales are up. That's one way
Sales
to deal
are.
with it, right?
Yeah.
And right, all alcohol turns to sugar. And don't forget, then that could go diabetes. So are there places, and not so much in terms of AA, but are there places for folks to go online that could provide more guidance in terms of healthy eating, ways to control sugar, to learn more about, maybe there's folks that don't realize that, alcohol turns to sugar, and that's just more sugar in your bloodstream, for self-education, let's say.
So I'd say that, definitely twofold question there. So for resources and just trying to make smart decisions, I know I mentioned the eatingwell.com, and I think that that's a great resource. I do think Harvard School of Public Health, their site is very, very robust, and those would be my two biggest recommendations for just general wellness. If you're looking for specific wellness, say diabetes, I would say the American Diabetes Association is great. The American Heart Association is great for heart. If you're concerned about COVID-19, this CDC is a phenomenal resource as well. So just going back to true resources that have folks who really kind of know what they're talking about. With alcohol, we have seen sales spike. They are up. Last time I saw up 60%. So yes, lots of alcohol is being consumed, which doesn't help with your weight. It certainly doesn't help with you getting out and moving more. But the other thing I think we're forgetting beyond addiction is we have to remember that alcohol is, particularly in excess, is an anti-nutrient. And it also can decrease our immune system, and that just puts us at risk. And certainly no one wants to be at risk right now. So my suggestion is if you feel like you are struggling with addiction, to get help. And there are definitely resources. And my top suggestion is to flip to the back of your health insurance card. A lot of counseling is being done through telehealth right now, so you don't even have to go to the doctor's office if you don't feel like it's safe. But to get support that you need, there are lots of networks set up. But second is, if you feel like your behavior has shifted during this pandemic, it's just to kind of rearrange and reshift your priorities and come up with goal setting. And I think goal setting can be really, really helpful as you're trying to figure out how do you want to move forward. And as Todd mentioned, it's coming up with the small strategies. It's little things, and those little things can lead to bigger things, and just kind of build momentum to keep you feeling positive and realizing that, yes, you can do this. The other thing I want to mention with alcohol is alcohol can be disruptive to sleep. And I know many of us need sleep, but lack of sleep can also lead to weight gain. So it's that domino effect of, or give a mouse a cookie, right? And it all leads down the road. And with excess alcohol, as fun as it might seem in the moment, really doesn't lead to much good, including excess energy and certainly increased risk for diseases.
And with that, Kristen Hamilton, thank you so much for your presentation today. And Todd McDonald, a managing partner at Lara Group for the Northeast region, thank you as well for hosting and being with us today for this webinar. And once again, for all those who have joined us, the webinar has been recorded. A link will be provided, and information about that link will be posted in the daily CU scan for all of our members. So once again, thank you all for being with us today. Thank you again, and have a great day.